All right, and welcome everyone to another edition of Extreme Sports. Glad to have you all joining us today, tuning into the content that we do have for you today. Some breaking news that will be coming in with you today. I am your host, the one and only the X Factor, Xavier McKnight, joined by a special guest today, Ishmael Marshall. And for our longtime fans and followers and supporters, you'll remember Ishmael and I, we did a show about 5 to 4.5 years ago at Savannah State University called Real Time Sports on the WSSU 104.1 FM network. Had a lot of great times doing that show, and today feels like old times. Ish, what's up, bro?
How you been, bro? And yes, it does feel like old times. I mean, I still reminisce the days we used to have those battles back in and we had some very heated battles too, man. And I just we sometimes be reminiscing about those battles that we used to have, and it just feels good to be back on the show and just discuss these topics with you, man.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. We definitely going to bring back some of that old time fever today. But before we get started, I want to send my best wishes and our prayers out to Colts head coach Frank Wright. News came out about an hour ago that he has tested positive for COVID-19, and he is going to miss the start of training camp. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, this pandemic is not over. You need to continue to do everything that you have to do to take care of yourself, your loved ones, and everyone for that matter. I'm not here to say go get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. That is a choice. But at least have the respect to not gather in large crowds and put a mask on if you're not going to do the things that are being recommended for us to do in order for us to come out of this pandemic. With that being said, about 2 hours ago, almost exactly, we got some breaking news out of the college football world. You all will remember college football was a huge topic that Ish and I used to discuss on Real Time Sports, and it's no different here today. It's been lingering for about a week now. We started hearing the rumors, and today it started to become a little more official. According to multiple reports and multiple outlets, Texas and Oklahoma presidents, the presidents of those universities, they met with the Big 12 today, and they do not plan to renew their media rights, which expire in 2025. So it's not immediately, but they don't plan to renew their media rights and return to the Big 12 once this contract is over. And the hot meal rumor is that both schools could be headed to the SEC. Is your initial reaction?
I wasn't surprised. Everybody knows that the SEC is the best conference in college football. Um, what my first initial thought was, man, college football is going to make a whole 360. We're going to see a lot of teams leave other conferences because they're going to try to join because they're not going to make enough revenue. We're going to see the college football playoff basically expand. College, like the whole college football itself is just going to make a whole change. And I think, especially with that Supreme Court ruling with players making revenue off their likeness, I just think that everything is going to shift, and SEC is just going to be the dominant conference, regardless of not only football, but I believe also in other sports too.
Yeah, we first started hearing last week Nick Saban saying that he was hearing that Alabama's expected starting quarterback Bryce Young has already made seven figures with
Yes.
those new profound opportunities for student college athletes to be able to make. And let's just put it like this. It's been a long time coming for them to be able to do stuff like this. They make so much money for universities, and they weren't being able to get a dime of it. Their coaches make a lot of money. They can't get a dime of it. But without the players, the programs don't come together and have the success that they have. And I'm glad that there's now
Exactly.
some form of understanding with that being in play. But let's go back to Texas and Oklahoma here for a second. Stalwarts for a long time in that Big 12 conference. National championships with both programs. Oklahoma still one of the elite programs in college football today. Texas is trying to work their way back up to where they once were. Maybe under new head coach Steve Sarkisian, they can do the thing here. He might have a better chance with recruiting than Tom Herman and Charlie Strong did, because no matter what you want to say about Sark, Sark is a big name in the football world. His time with USC, his time with, I believe at one point he was with Tennessee as a coordinator, his time with the Falcons as an offensive coordinator, his time with Alabama as an offensive coordinator. So he's made his rounds around the college football world. And it could be very similar to a Lane Kiffin type situation, except for the fact that Lane Kiffin did start off again after leaving Alabama, going to a smaller school and working his way back up to the SEC, going to Ole Miss. But definitely looking to see what Texas is going to do going into this season. Oklahoma, I have no doubt. Lincoln Riley, he's had that program, took it straight over from Bob Stoops and kind of took it to that next level. I say kind of because they have not won a championship with Lincoln Riley yet, a national championship or a college football championship. But they're knocking on the door every single year. With that being said, as you said, the SEC is the beast of college football. There is no conference like the SEC. And how exactly do you expect these teams to adjust if they do indeed come to the SEC?
There won't be no need of adjustment because, you know, in the college football playoff, we had LSU versus Oklahoma. Alabama had played Oklahoma. Georgia played Oklahoma. So they have some kind of, and Georgia has had experience of playing Texas in a Sugar Bowl and playing Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl and playing other Big 12s in the Sugar Bowl. And they have, played previous bowl games against the Big 12 type conference. So it won't be no adjustment. What will be, the problem will be is recruiting. It will be, will Alabama get those 5-star recruits out of Texas? Will you have Texas A&M and Texas in the ACC? Will Oklahoma be able to get those recruits out of Florida? And because Florida is also a top recruit, and also will those Texas be able to get those recruits out of Georgia as well? So the battle will be the recruiting. When it comes down to the game and then playing on the football field, it will be competition. I know I have heard things where Oklahoma don't have defense, Texas is still up and coming. If Alabama has Oklahoma, Texas, LSU, Auburn, Georgia on their schedule, Nick Saban will not have no sleep. Trust me. Nick Saban will not have no sleep. He will not sleep on those teams. Those teams will be competitive. Those games will not be, we don't need to watch Texas play Auburn or Texas play LSU. That's not going to be no football game. Those games will be competitive. The competitiveness will be the recruiting.
I agree with you from the recruiting standpoint, but I do believe that there will have to be some form of adjustment for the teams. And the reason I say that is because they will have to get acclimated and used to playing a more physical style of football on a year-round basis. It's one thing when you only have to play some of these teams like once or twice in the season. It's easy to run the finesse offense and everything like that if you only see them once or twice. But that physicality that you have to deal with, even with some of the lower ranked teams, Tennessee,
Yeah.
Kentucky,
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, Arkansas, South Carolina. Like, these are still physical teams, and like you have to prepare for that physicality. So I believe it's going to take a year or two for the adjustment period, but you're absolutely right about recruitment thing. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma in particular, they already do a great job recruiting enough as it is anyway. And now you would have an opportunity to put that SEC banter behind you. Yeah, it's going to be a serious problem in the recruiting ranks. And the defense thing, you and I spoke offline about this yesterday. And I do believe that those teams will have to put more of an emphasis on defense as well, while not taking anything away from offense at the same time. But with Texas now being in the SEC, if this does indeed happen, if they do make that move, yeah, you would see more players in Texas say, all right, I'm staying home and I'm playing for the Longhorns. And Jimbo Fisher is still at Texas A&M. They'll go play for the Aggies. So, yeah, the recruiting thing is going to be interesting. And not to mention, the ACC is still there. The Big Ten is still there. So, you still got competition on both sides, on all sides of the fence here. Just really quickly, there was also a report that Texas A&M was not aware that Texas had done this, or they had submitted a report to become a part of the SEC last week along with Oklahoma. Now, what wasn't said is if there was disappointment or if there was rage or anger or anybody being furious about it. But what happens to Texas A&M, in your opinion, if a bigger brand school like Texas does come to the SEC?
Well, I don't think they're not going to lose or be, because people still think of Texas A&M as a good program with Jimbo Fisher, and people still, have that image of when Johnny Manziel was there and Texas A&M was on the rise. So I don't think there will be in Texas shadow because since the past 5-6 years, Texas A&M has been the best college football team in Texas. So I don't think that Texas A&M will lose their light if Texas comes in, because Texas still has to show that they can hold their own in the SEC as well. I mean, yes, Texas has been a good program. They have their history, but right now Texas A&M is the best team in Texas, college football team right now.
Yeah, it took Jimbo Fisher a year to get that program officially turned back around, but they played some really good college football last year during the pandemic season. Now, we talked here about Texas and Oklahoma and how that shakes up the college football world, but I want to go back to something that you started off with. We'll start to see more teams and more schools want to get out of current conferences that they're in and go to bigger conferences. One of the bigger ones that truly stands out to me now is Notre Dame. Is this one of those type of moves that we may finally see Notre Dame say, it's time for us to go into a conference and stop being an independent? And if so,
well, they already did.
Is it more likely to be the ACC or is it more likely to be the Big Ten? And I ask that because when I think about Notre Dame, even though they play a lot of teams in the ACC, they're right there in the heart of where the Big Ten is. And I think they would fit in perfectly with that conference.
Well, technically, they are part of the ACC because besides football, other sports play in the ACC teams. They go to the conference championship games. They all count. So I think I understand the idea of them going to the Big Ten because I think that will be a better option because of them playing against Ohio State, them playing against Michigan State, them playing against Michigan, them playing against Wisconsin and Penn State. So they'll be more televised besides them playing, because the only team in the ACC right now relevant in football is Clemson. So it'll be, as far as a revenue standpoint, yes, it'll be better for them to go to the Big Ten because they'll have better competition, which puts them on TV in primetime games. However, I think the best option for them to put them on the rise would be to go to ACC because the only team they have to go against would be Clemson. And yes, they have their little battles with Clemson, but if they go in the ACC and they learn how to play against Clemson and they learn to play against other schools, then who knows? Notre Dame might be the dominant team in the ACC.
This is true, but what if the Big Ten also makes a move and tries to go get Clemson too? That's something I wouldn't necessarily rule out because when it comes down to college football, where we currently stand today, is like you said, Clemson doesn't really have any true competition in that conference. And are they going to get to a point where they're like, oh, we'll stay here and we'll continue to dominate the conference that we're in, or will they possibly want to go to, you know what, let's go get more competitive. Let's go play in a bigger conference. Let's go play Ohio State. Let's go play Penn State. Let's go play Iowa. Let's go play, even though now on a smaller scale, Michigan State, because they have really fallen off. But do you think they move in that direction as well?
It's a possibility. I mean, it's basically it basically is where the money takes you by the end of the day. So Clemson, I honestly don't see them leaving the ACC because of how they've been on the rise and how they the face of the ACC. Or, I mean, who knows? It might be schools from the Big Ten, like Maryland, come back to the ACC. We never don't know. So, I mean, I just think right now, Clemson will be the dominant team in ACC, and also with Notre Dame, like we were talking about before, it would be best, ideally, for Notre Dame to go to the Big Ten because of the history we're playing against, schools like Ohio State and Michigan, and still having those traditional games. But we just got to see where the money goes by the end of the day, because that's the predominant factor where the money goes.
Yeah, but for me, it's not even just about the competition or their history about those teams. It's where they are location-wise. It's like if Nebraska is in the Big Ten, Notre Dame damn sure should definitely be in the Big Ten, just from a location standpoint.
I understand.
But I'm glad you brought up the point about Maryland too, because I think that was actually a big mistake for them, football-wise at least, to go to the Big Ten. If you had Maryland in the ACC right now, I'm not saying they would give Clemson a run for their money, but at least they would make things interesting. Because if you've been watching Maryland the past few years, like I know we have, they got a good program. But for Big Ten standards, they're not competing with Ohio State. They're not competing with Michigan. And they're not competing with Penn State. Now, they might give one of those teams a run for a game or so, but as far as a season-wide margin, as far as just being in the top 10 and hovering around a college football playoff spot, they're not going to do that while they play in that conference. And even if they were to go to the ACC, I still don't know if they'd be able to do it, but they would have a lot better of a time with North Carolina, Georgia Tech, North Carolina State. Florida State right now, even though I do believe that program is on its way back to rebuilding itself up to some form of prominence, the only two teams you really have to worry about are Clemson and Miami. Because Miami, they showed me a little something last year. I'm not convinced that they're all the way back yet. We'll see what happens this season. But those are the only two teams you truly have to contend with right there.
Well, to respond to the Maryland, well, yes, Maryland has been showing good results in the Big Ten as far as football wise, but as basketball wise, Maryland has been doing pretty well. And I also want to make that point. Yesterday we was on the phone talking that some teams will not move because of their status as far as a basketball team in their conference too. Because like I said, it's all about where the money goes. Like I don't never gonna see Duke and North Carolina leaving the ACC because of how predominantly they've been as far as the basketball team. And if the revenue is coming in good by that basketball program, then they're not gonna leave. And that's another factor that I was gonna make while we was on the phone, but we was gonna just I'm basically just gonna bring to the show. It's also what other programs revenue is gonna bring to the table too, because the Big Ten has good basketball programs out of Michigan, Wisconsin as well, and Michigan State as well. So some teams are not going to leave because of how much money football is bringing. I mean, how much the climate of football when it comes to the college football playoff and how it's basically nationalized and televised and how much revenue coming because all the people throughout the world was anticipating who's going to make it to the college football playoff with that suspense. So some programs and some athletic directors are not just going to sit there and think like, oh, we just saw Texas, Oklahoma leaving the ACC. We got to make a big move and this and that. No, they're just going to sit tight and we'll say, no, we got what we got with our other programs besides football, and we're going to stay put.
I agree with you on that to a degree. And I say to a degree just simply because, yes, some of these schools that you just mentioned, they do have powerhouse basketball programs. But no matter how great the basketball is, it would really surprise me if college football wasn't the driving sport at these schools, if not all of them. Like Duke, I would understand. Okay, that's college basketball, but they still bring in a lot of revenue on the college football circuit too. So, and just overall how college football is marketed compared to how college basketball is marketed now. You definitely got to say that college football is more than likely the king in that department. So, and some of these programs, they don't even have college football programs too. So I understand exactly what you're saying when you go there with that. But it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here. My next question for you is this. if Texas and Oklahoma do come to the SEC, should the SEC consider relinquishing two of one of those lower teams that never really compete and never really have a chance to even get in there?
Which teams are you talking about? Are you
Uh,
talking about Vanderbilt?
Vanderbilt is one that I'm thinking about in particular. And on the Western side, it's hard to pick one over there because it would be real easy to say Arkansas right now, but we know that Arkansas, they've had some years where they are a top 10 program too. I've never seen in my life Vanderbilt as a top 10 program, not anywhere even close to it.
Yes,
Kentucky,
in football, but however, in other sports, baseball,
baseball is a
Vanderbilt,
totally different monster. You are absolutely right about that. And they have a much better basketball program than they do in football
right?
as well.
So that's the point I made previously. You know, the football gonna make his money regardless because of with the college football playoff. Since the college football player has been in place, revenue has been spiking because of the suspense of who's gonna get in. Everybody tunes in about who's gonna get in, and just how they play the more games and how you know the sponsorships, the advertisement. I mean, all that all in one. So that's why football will be the ideal to go. Let's make a change for football because of how the college football playoff has made it, more televised and more advertised about because paying the national championship game. So that would be the ideal. But if I'm athletic director in these schools, I'm just not, depending on, you know, if the money's there, then I got to do what I got to do. But if it's not gonna make a drastic change, then I'm just gonna say stay put. And go back to your question about should the ACC weed out the two teams? No, because you could Vanderbilt, yes, they're not competitive, but you still can't just sleep on Vanderbilt. I mean, I have seen Vanderbilt beat South Carolina. I have seen Vanderbilt beat Georgia in one particular season. I have seen Vanderbilt play competitive against Florida. I mean, it's just if they have the talent right then in that particular season and the right coach, they're going to be competitive, and you just can't sleep on that team. Same with Arkansas. Arkansas has sports and talent throughout the years, and they make a run and they be competitive. So it's just, you know, now I don't think they just need to weed them out, honestly.
Another thing that I really think is playing a big factor here in Texas and Oklahoma wanting to make this move to make this decision is the fact that you look around the college football circuit and we saw most of the conferences deciding to just cancel their seasons last year because of
Mhm.
COVID, because of what was going on with the pandemic.
Yes.
But the SEC, the first conference that literally came out and said, no, we're going to do it like this. We'll start the season late and condense it if we have to, but we are going to play college football. And even though there were positive tests that were coming out with programs, they had to postpone games and play them later. For the most part, they came out of this unscathed. Like, you didn't have any serious COVID cases that happened with these programs. You heard about players being tested and being screened every day. And the Big Ten, we know they didn't want to play. They came back and they played. The Big 12 initially wasn't going to play. They came back and played. The Pac 12 initially didn't play. They came back and they played. So, but the SEC was the driving force last year that said, no, we're playing college football. We'll keep it within the conference, only conference games, but we are going to play college football. And they came out and they did that. And it was a great showing last season. And it definitely helped save some revenue and some money for these conferences and these schools with these TV deals that they had to fulfill the obligations for too. So do you think that the way that the SEC handled COVID and has handled the pandemic and how they're still handling it today has also played a role in Texas and Oklahoma saying, you know what, maybe it's time to make the jump to that conference?
No, I don't think that reason how they handled the pandemic. I just think that in the past years, who has been, competing for the championship, it's always been someone out of the SEC. I mean, the SEC is the first conference in the college football playoff to have two teams battle it out for the national championship. So it's just all about competition as far as revenue, getting the money, and also being in the prime light of your school, getting recognition in the prime light. I mean, when it comes to college football, you're gonna think of the SEC as the powerhouse and the teams to beat in college football and recruiting as well.
Yeah, the conference doesn't exactly have the stranglehold on college football that it did for the longest amount of time because we're starting to see different teams emerge in different conferences. But the SEC is still the king. And I just got to go ahead and say this too. If Texas and Oklahoma really do make this jump, and Nick Saban is still at Alabama by this time, which I don't see any reason why he probably will not be.
Yeah, I think his contract is to 2028. I think
And
he's
he
up there.
continues to dominate. There is no doubt about it that Nick Saban should be heralded as the greatest college football coach of all time. If this indeed does happen and he continues to dominate at the level that he has dominated. I mean, you just think about this for a second. You got Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, you got Kirby Smart at Georgia, and now you potentially got Steve Sarkisian at Texas if Texas does indeed come to the SEC. Those are three former Saban assistants who are strong.
You forget Jimbo Fisher too.
Jimbo Fisher as well. Yes. Those are four strong former Saban assistants that they know what they're doing at their programs, obviously. And they know how to recruit as well. Kirby Smart was actually the best recruiter at Alabama. He was the lead recruiter at Alabama in his time there as an assistant under Nick Saban. And you saw when Kirby Smart made the move to Georgia, you saw some of those recruiters that I'm coming to Georgia instead of going to Alabama now, simply because of Kirby Smart. And you know, Lane Kiffin, he's going to get better with the recruiting as well too. He just has to build Ole Miss back up to some form of prominence again. I don't think that's going to be very difficult for him to do.
And well, with Ole Miss, they have scholarships that was taken away because of what happened with the previous coach. I can't think of his name right now, but I already think Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach all time already. I mean, the man, as soon as the man came in Alabama, he put his foot down there. Alabama has been rolling ever since. I mean, the guy's just great at what he does. I mean, he knows how to get his players, and with this generation now, and for him to be dominant with this generation now, and to just have them focus and to get them in tune with abiding not by his way, but to tweak. Because when he was interviewed, he says you have to every year you get a different generation, and you have to adjust to that generation. And for him to just say, well, I'm going to adjust. I'm not going to be old school. I'm not going to be my way the highway. I got to get these kids to come play for me. And if I don't adjust, then I'm not going to win and I'm not going to get them to come. So just for him to make the adjustment just shows that he's just great. Because some coaches that just not going to change. Like, I'm going to go how my way. It's going to be my way. And if you don't like it, then you can get gone and not play. And that's why he's the greatest, and that's why he's going to continue to be the great, because he's going to make that particular adjustment right there, just to change his philosophy, just to change his mindset, just to get the kids to come there. That says it all.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you right there. He's definitely the greatest college football coach in my eyes too. Listen, we'll just have to continue to watch and see how these things unfold with Texas and Oklahoma and all the news around college football as well. Before we get out of here, one nugget of NFL news that came out today too. The Houston Texans are officially now open to trading Deshaun Watson. So with that being said, how active do you expect this market to get for him?
Well, it all depends on, his off the field issue. And also depends on what the teams want in exchange for him. I feel that it'll be teams, already blowing up the phone, general manager's phone, saying what you want, all this other stuff. We give you this, we give you that. But it also depends on will he be able to play? because if he's on that commissioner exempt list, then you basically gave away because they're gonna get at least 2 first-round draft picks out off rip. He's got 2 first-round draft picks off rip, and you're gonna lose 2 first-round draft picks for a guy that potentially might not be able to play that season or might not. Who knows if he be able to play again? I mean, well, his off the field issue is a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter, but still, as long as the investigation is going, it depends on how long Roger Goodell will have him on a commissioner exempt list. So who knows? But I can see about 5 teams. 5 teams already been blowing up the phone trying to get them.
By chance, who do you think they are?
I could the Raiders, the Broncos. I don't. Some stores I saw Miami possibly would trade Tua for him.
I'm gonna give you a team
Minnesota.
I'm gonna give you a team that I really think should be in the mix for him, as I think they should be in the mix for Aaron Rodgers too. And people think I'm crazy for saying this, but the New York Giants. The New York Giants have a really good roster around it. Like think about it. They have a really good defense. You got
Yeah, they do.
Saquon Barkley that's coming back, and now you have extra weapons to throw the football to with Sterling Shepard now being there. Kenny Galladay now being there. Evan Ingram still there. Kyle Rudolph coming there as well. So you got a 2-headed tight end monster potentially right there as long as Evan Ingram can stay healthy. And Joe Judge, so far he has proven to be competent as far as at least getting the organization turned around from a culture standpoint. They do at least look like they have a football culture again after those troubling years under Ben McAdoo, even though he did lead them to the playoffs in one season. A lot of that was with the roster that Tom Coughlin built, of course, the previous seasons before that.
Right.
But they do at least look like that they have built a football culture there again. And if the New York Giants get their hands on one of these star quarterbacks, I'm just saying that's a wide open division right now to me. It's like, do you really trust Dallas's defense enough? Like, look, Dak comes back and Dak is going to be Dak, and Zeke has been able to get in phenomenal shape, even though I have my concerns about the fact of how many times he's had to carry the ball throughout the years that he's been in the league, no matter how phenomenal of shape he's in. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, like, no doubt about it. Dallas's offense, they're going to put points on the board, but you don't trust Philly right now. You don't know what Jalen Hurts is going to be. Like, truthfully, I mean, you wish him all the best. That head coach,
they do believe in him.
You really don't know what that head coach is. And the Washington football team with Ryan Fitzpatrick, no, that's not something I would be willing to bet on. Like, if the Giants can get their hands on one of these star quarterbacks, whether it's an Aaron Rodgers or potentially a Deshaun Watson, seeing if Deshaun Watson is eligible to play, as you continue to eloquently say, it changes the game in that division.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and also Redskins. Redskins could be a potential candidate. So the Giants or the Redskins as well. Yeah, I can see what you're saying with if Deshaun go to the Giants with their young defense, Saquon Barkley, the weapons, and it'll make a good turnaround because I mean, in the NFC East is up for grabs of who can have the best quarterback to win. Because yes, they have the defenses. Washington defense, no slouch. Giants defense, yes. Dallas Cowboys defense is questionable. In Philly, they just have a whole question throughout the whole team with, Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz and that debacle they had over there. And hopefully, I just hope they give Jalen Hurts a chance. The new coach does, but yeah, Deshaun has options. I just hope, they don't. Well, I just hope he will have a opportunity to go to a place that we could see his greatness. Because when that man was at Clemson, that man was great. And
Absolutely. And he's shown throughout his time with the Houston Texans as well that he can be great. Deshaun Watson was great last season. He just wasn't surrounded by much at all. And that's through no fault of his own.
I mean, they let his number one target go. I mean, you let someone. I mean, it's different if when players come in together. These came from the same school. They played it. I mean, they didn't play together in college, but they played at the same school, so they got that rapport of being from the same school. So that's different. And you take that away from him, and I mean D Hop. You take D Hop away from him, and D Hop is who top one of the top three right now. So of course, he's gonna not be up to what he's standing. I mean, you're gonna trade him away, and then you get what it was, a fourth round pick and a running back.
A running back who has been very injured and hobbled over the past 3 to 4
Right,
seasons as well.
right. Like you didn't get another weapon for him, and so what you expect? And I just think honestly, the Houston organization is just not good. I don't think it's just not ran good at all. So I mean,
It never really has been from the point that they've been the Texans to when they were the Houston Oilers. Like, it's always been a dysfunctional organization down there. I will say that. We'll just have to continue to see how all of this plays out. It's interesting to me now that they officially came to the point to where they said, okay, we're open to trading him. I don't know if it took for him to actually come into the building and for them to actually see him, or what it was. I don't know what it took for him to finally get to this point.
think about it. I mean, he goes to training camp, and literally he shows at the training camp yesterday, and the day after they trade him, and then all the stuff that has transpired before that. You think there's going to be uneasiness like in that organization? I mean, Deshaun is not going to speak to the owner and the general manager. He don't want to talk to them. He don't want to be around them, and I know they probably feel the same way around him. So it's just going to cause a rift with everybody, and you got a new head coach in there, and how you expect him to succeed, and you got all this going on behind closed doors as well, and how you think the team and all that is gonna look at it too. So of course they're gonna have to trade him. I think they just want him to show up and then have a face to face talk with him, and then proceed to business.
Well, I definitely hope that is the case. And as you said, I hope he gets into a situation where he is truly able to thrive. I mean, I really wouldn't mind seeing him go down to Miami either. That defense they have a competent offense, and they
Mm.
did add weapons. I mean, particular to see how Jalen Waddle is going to continue to recover from that ankle injury he suffered at Alabama. But I'm hoping that he can come to the league and prove to be elite as well. And they appear to be a well-ran organization now with Chris Greer, the
Yeah.
general manager, and Brian Flores, the head coach. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Just one more nugget of information before we get out of here. Milwaukee Bucks, the new NBA champions, won the championship almost a week ago now. Your thoughts on Giannis and where he is now on the NBA's pecking order as far as top 10, top 5 or players ranking in the world right now?
Well, I always like Giannis. Like I like watching him. Like I never seen someone like his size or his stature. And the man got the most unstoppable Euro step ever. I mean, the man Euro step can tomahawk dunk, do it all. He could do it all game, and they can't stop it. Um, so Giannis, I will put him literally as the best basketball player in NBA if he had a consistent jump shot. He is a consistent jump shot away from being the best player in NBA. Because hands down, him going to the paint, no one's stopping him. I mean, what he did to DeAndre Ayton should be murder. He should be charged for murder for what he did to DeAndre Ayton in the NBA Finals. I mean, if I'm DeAndre Ayton and I'm in the film room, I'm going to Monty and saying, look, you could draw whatever you want to do on that board. It's not going to work. He's too big for me. He's too strong for me. I need help.
And
I
with
need
that,
help.
and with that being said, I expect DeAndre Ayton to get into the weight room this offseason. Because
That
if
too.
DeAndre Ayton gets into the weight room, he's indeed going to be a problem down low too. Remember, he was torching people throughout the Western Conference playoffs. He made Nikola Jokic look like Nikola Jokic had no business at times winning the league MVP.
Well, Nikola Jokic ain't got the quickness and agility. So yeah, but he saw Giannis and he like, oh yeah, I need to step my game up because I can't handle this man 1-on-1. I mean, I just can't. And yes, he does. I mean, I don't know why they never thought about putting him in the weight room. I mean, he is a big. I mean, that's the name big comes from, you being a big statured body. But I
Well,
mean,
it's his third season in the league, and experience is the greatest teacher. And I believe that we'll just continue to see him grow and build and develop the proper NBA body that he needs to have for the size that he has and the position it is that he plays. But once again, congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks. Second NBA championship overall, their first that they've won in 50 years. Really nice to see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson get to be a part of those festivities. Nice to see players like Brandon Jennings and Michael Redd get to be a part of it too. They were literally the Bucks franchise for so many years. Michael Redd, one of the most underrated players of the 2000s. He just couldn't stay healthy. He had catastrophic knee injuries, and they ultimately shortened his career. But he's a great player for the Bucks in his time when he was healthy there. And Brandon Jennings literally was the franchise prior to them drafting Giannis Antetokounmpo. So really nice for them to be able to have that moment. And congratulations to the Phoenix Suns too. The season didn't end the way that you wanted it to, but it was the first time since 2010 that this team even made the postseason, and they went all the way to the NBA Finals. Shout out to General Manager James Jones, who went to 7 straight NBA Finals to close out his playing career, and then went to the Phoenix Suns. And even though it took a few years, he turned that organization around. Shout out to Monty Williams. God bless him. We know what Monty's been through over the years, that tragic accident involving his wife when he was an assistant head coach with the OKC Thunder. He never should have been fired out of New Orleans in the first place. He led that team to a playoff berth, and they fired him after he did so. Chris Paul, listen, still a great player, one of the all-time great point guards, but when Drew Holiday was on him, he looked every bit of 36 years old. Let's just tell the truth. It is what it is. Devin Booker grew up and he emerged before our eyes. There's still some growing that needs to be done there. But the Suns, whether they bring Chris Paul back next season or not, they have a bright future. I'm not saying they're going to get to the NBA Finals again next year, because to me, the Western Conference is wide open, with Kawhi Leonard more than likely being out next season. LeBron is aging. AD can't stay healthy. We have to see what Klay Thompson looks like when he comes back. It's a wide open conference right now, so we'll end up seeing what happens. But once again, congratulations to the Bucks on winning the championship, and congratulations to the Phoenix Suns on a bounce back, unexpected season that many people just didn't see coming for them. Many of us saw playoffs, but we didn't see this. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to get out of here. Want to thank my brother for joining me here today. This definitely will not be the last time that you all see him. We'll definitely be doing more of this in the future, especially as football season prepares to get
I
under.
can't wait. Training camp starts tomorrow.
Yes, it does. And, guys, we'll be back really soon once again. But for Ishmael Marshall, I'm the X Factor Xavier McKnight. This has been another edition of Xtreme Sports. And we thank you all for watching, and we'll see you when we see you.
Take it easy, brother.